I think jobs that, our children are going to have, for example, they don't even exist yet.
I had a situation at some point in my life, a leader was saying, Amma, the generations that work for me are really young and I treat them like as if they're my kids. Hold on. They're not your kids. They are business professionals like you, but happen to be at a younger age.
How do you see that the employee expectations have changed across generations? Because we see a lot of dirt being thrown around on the younger generations, especially for being very demanding.
Just because you don't have work experience, which doesn't mean you don't have valuable experience that you can bring to an employer.
Exactly. The concept before was hire for attitude, teach skills later. So what happened to that?
When you see a resume now, everyone's created it on ChatGPT. It's lost its personality. So you have to tie into those additional sources of social proof to figure out, what does this person stand for? How do they portray themselves? What are they really about?
What is it that the world has been missing lately? We are advocating for HR to also be the sounding board in the CEO's brain.
When we're thinking about AI, a lot of people get really scared. AI is coming for my job. AI is going to take over the world. AI is there to facilitate human interaction and not to replace it.
Namaste.
Marhaba.
We are the Z-Way and we are welcoming two very awesome guests today, and the topic is around the future of talent, the future of HR, something that we are all a part of, something that we have all experienced at some point in time, be it in frustrations, be it in happiness, be it in joys. So we have with us Dr. Ghenwa, who's a HR leader. She's been at Fortune 500 companies across the region. She's done a lot of great work. She has her own book, The Talent Matrix, and she's also developed her own model around the region, around the space, which is known as the FAST model. She's the best person to throw more light upon it. I'm not going to talk more, but that's pretty much about what she's done, and we are so excited to have her here. And joining her is Megan, someone I'm very close to and someone I guess every Gen Z in the region is very close to if they get to meet her. Professionally speaking, she is the co-founder of Professional Me, which is a recruitment tech startup leveraging AI for the space of recruitment. And she's also had a very fascinating journey coming into entrepreneurship from healthcare, which I guess she'll be talking more about in the episode as we go ahead. But welcome, guys. We are so happy to have you here. And we are so happy to see you doing it the Z-Way, creating the impact the Z-Way. So hashtag impact across generations. We're going to brand it in.
Honestly, I'm really excited and thank you for hosting us. I just want to share something because you did introduce me as an author of the Talent Matrix, but I also want to give credit to the co-author, Dr. Suha Shaheen as well.
Amazing.
Who happens to be someone who I partnered a lot with her, and I think without her efforts, this book, The Talent Matrix, also wouldn't have been live today and about to be launched very soon as well across the UAE locally. Thank you.
So we have three guests, two live and one in
my
spirit.
heart.
One with the book with you. Amazing.
One in spirit, so
Amazing.
But okay, let's kick off with something, that is a hot topic right now. How do you feel, since the both of you have been in HR, both of you have been leaders at some point in time, have been, selecting candidates and integrating them into the organization? How do you see that the employee expectations have changed? They have evolved across generations, because we see a lot of, dirt being thrown around on the younger generations, especially for being very demanding. And likewise, even for the older generations, maybe for being a bit resistant, being a bit rigid around some aspects that they hold strongly close to their hearts. So both of you, how do you feel that these expectations have evolved with each passing generation?
Interesting. Megan, do you want to go first?
Sure. I think the current system is failing all of the generations, if we're being honest.
Wow.
Yeah, I know that's kind of a bold statement to lead with.
No, of course.
But it really is. And I think one of those reasons for this is we're still on the same foundational pillars that we were on 560 years ago, never mind just 3 generations ago. We're using CVs, which were invented by Leonardo da Vinci.
Okay.
That's the history of the CV. We're using that same exact system today.
Wow.
And we're pairing that also with job descriptions, which are equally antiquated. So we have these two unstructured texts, which we're trying to match in order to make meaningful employment opportunities.
True.
And it's letting all the generations down because no one in today's culture, regardless of their age, can express who they are and what they can bring to the table on a single piece of paper or two pieces of paper or probably even 3 or 4 pieces of paper. It's just not enough.
Wow. Wow.
Quite interesting because, I mean, though I am not, a Gen Z, I fall under the millennial kind of thing, but I somehow echo that because, being a leader today, I think the struggle is real, right? Because you can't basically know who is the new candidate who happens to be a Gen Z in front of you, and where I really advocate for branding. So let's say in my interview process, I sometimes talk about their hobbies, how do they portray their brand, if they haven't yet started it, like what's their plan, right? Because this is how I will get to know who is the person in front of me and whether this person will be there not just to fit. I don't want them to fit. I want them actually to accelerate. I want them actually to add value, right? And we're back to your point. I think we still have baby boomers in the organization, and these are really important people in the organization, right? We can't say that they are not like proper pillars, right? We need them. We need them for the business to flourish, for sure. But also there is a mindset like, Gen Z is not going to be as serious as me, for example, in the business. Will they be able to carry on? I'm like, yeah, of course, because, you want to evolve the business, but how will you evolve them without their
Input,
impact and input, and what's their they're gonna make a blueprint like here.
Yes, of course.
Right?
And it's not only about, like, our Z-Way is speaking about all generations, not only the Gen Zs, because we're trying to get ready for the future. Yeah.
You mentioned a very interesting point across personal branding, the importance of, establishing your own brand in terms of recruitment opportunities. And lately, we have also seen and heard a lot, like if you open LinkedIn any point of the time, like any day, you'll see that there's a lot of emphasis that's being laid around personal branding. So how do you feel like, is there a certain amount of weightage or some doors that a personal brand can open that maybe your connections, your network, or your CV alone cannot? Or is it something that's viewed in alignment with something else? Like, how do you view personal brand when you're looking at a candidate? Is that alone sufficient for, you to give them a chance?
Okay, I'll talk from my personal experience. I think personal brand to start with is very important because it will lay out the foundation out of the, words that we use in our resumes, right? In order to be properly found through ATS, because I think today where the world is, it's still at this era. They haven't evolved, and I think you have a lot to share on this.
Yes.
Right?
You're setting it up. I love it. Keep it coming.
Right, and I think because we're not there yet, I rely a lot on how the candidates basically portray themselves on socials, because they are gonna tell me if this, like, their aspiration is gonna help me evolve my business, it's gonna help me promote my business. Are they gonna be proper brand ambassadors for the organization that they're gonna work for? Right, because today, if I look at branding, even from a organization perspective at that level, not even on a personal level, if you don't leverage your people's presence on socials, this is one sales funnel that also organizations are losing, right? And this is where, maybe at a later stage, we'll tap into the quantum thinking of how you manage at a bigger scale. But Megan, I mean, we had this discussion before,
She's been eager to know what you do.
Yeah, I'm dying to know.
No, we'll get into all that later. I'm not here to pitch, but I couldn't agree more that personal branding is incredibly important, and it's something that we as individuals need to take very seriously. It should be considered, I think, by employers when looking at candidates. And this is another one of those examples of a CV can't adequately portray a personal brand. I remember the first resume that I made, and I was just thinking back on this during the car ride. back in the day, and I'm going to give away my age here, you couldn't go to ChatGPT and say, hey, ChatGPT, make me a resume. And you didn't email your resumes to employers. Sure. You actually printed them out.
Of course.
And I remember going to the stationery store and picking out what kind of paper I wanted to print my resume on. I'm like, I don't know, 15, 16 years old. And I got some like shimmery paper. But
that's cute.
The resume itself was your brand at that time, because this was before social media. So the way that you presented yourself 100% was that way. But we no longer have that. When you see a resume now, everyone's created it on ChatGPT. It's lost its personality.
True.
So you have to tie into those additional sources of social proof to figure out, what does this person stand for? How do they portray themselves? What are they really about? And a comprehensive hiring solution should be taking that into account as one of the variables that it assesses for candidates. So not just what is someone saying about themselves, but what is the world also saying about them? So not just their social media account, but how are they appearing in the public space online?
Okay. Megan, this brings me to a very, like, you're bringing it out that the resume shouldn't be like the main document that we look at. When I look at personal branding, personally, being an advocate of self-leadership, there is so much association with what values could they bring to the table, how do they show up, their ease of working with other people, regardless of their experience. So from what you're saying, okay, we need to reflect on personal branding, but we're talking about some generations that haven't worked yet.
Sure.
They're probably very active in social media, but they haven't really been in the workplace. And when I had discussions with a lot of the Gen Zs, they tell them, and potentially the betas, which in 2035 they're going to be out there, and there's going to be a mix. So they're being kind of not considered because they don't have working experience. And I always used to, when I had team members in my teams, I always used to say, how can they have work experience if you haven't hired them yet? Like you need to be able to
get
exactly
right.
It's like so you're telling them about personal branding. So when it comes to this personal branding, how do I portray myself, or how do organizations change the way that they recruit all this type of generations, like, because it's going to be completely different. And I don't think we currently have even leaders who are ready to recruit in a completely different way. It does not work, you know. From a set, if you're hiring a senior leader, you go and you probably do like a questionnaire for psychometric test to really be able to see how do they think, how do they operate, can they do math very well. But we really neglect so many other parts of it. Correct. So there is the values, there is how do they show themselves up, how could they be team members. So what's your input on that? And probably we can go to you, and eventually we're going to talk about quantum thinking.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this quantum thinking.
I like everything quantum. So what's your input?
No, I think this is a perfect example of how the current recruitment system is letting people down. Because just because you don't have work experience, which is what a CV portrays, it doesn't mean you don't have valuable experience that you can bring to an employer.
Exactly.
So when we are quantifying skills, when we're looking at someone's history and we're figuring out what they're capable of, what their attributes are, what their potential is, we need to be looking beyond job titles, and we need to be looking at things like hobbies, projects, volunteer experience. What are these people doing? What makes them who they are as individuals? And tying those to skills. Because if you're volunteering at a homeless shelter, you are gaining valuable skills.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But how do you communicate that on a CV? You can't. So that's one of the big problems that we've been tackling is the quantification of skills outside of just employment opportunities. Because the skills you gain anywhere, they're cumulative. The skills you gain at work, you don't use only at work. Right? The skills you learn at home, you take to work. Skills you learn at work, you take home or to your volunteer experience, and vice versa. So changing the way that we look at skills, they're not in silos, they're not keywords, they're not associated only with one job. They're transferable and they're cumulative. And I think the more we can start to shift the thought paradigm in terms of how skills work, then we're going to start to see big changes. And this really benefits students, freshers, And also people who are going through career changes. If you're
Big
shifting
time.
industries, if you're shifting titles.
Functions sometimes from
Of
finance
course,
to
of course.
HR or from engineering to HR.
Yeah, this kind of like
Exactly.
Valuable skill
yes,
sets.
like I just have to go upwards. It does not work anymore.
Right.
Like
No.
of course,
Very
of course.
non-linear.
It's very limiting.
Yeah.
This linear way of thinking of career trajectories is incredibly limiting, not just for individuals, but for companies as well.
course.
Because how much talent are they
I
missing
agree.
out on
Big time.
by
100%.
only looking for people who've had that specific job title in the past?
And that is the traditional way of perhaps, how you lead, how you think, how you hire, how you really drive business performance. I mean, one insight perhaps that I can just bring to this beautiful community of practice, the Z way. One thing that I usually ask the candidates in an interview is like, what's your favorite food? And they will tell me, let's say pasta. Okay, have you ever, cooked it? Have you ever, did it like a dish?
Right.
Wow.
And the answer would be like, yes, I did. Okay, so walk me through, how, you do it. And through that process, I try to analyze their ability of doing storytelling, their level of details into where they, share to what level they share, right? And where do they have a higher pitch versus a lower pitch? So I can, try to understand, how do they put or portray that for me as someone who hasn't perhaps ate pasta, for example, right? Is this something gonna excite me, right? So their storytelling, because we all read stories when we were young,
Yeah.
eventually, right?
And what could they bring?
How did you take this, to the business world, and that has been like really working for me.
Yeah.
And if they can't, they haven't cooked it, that's fine. Like, tell me, if you have to cook it now, how would you do it? And this is when you
How structured could they be?
Yeah.
What do
exactly
they
their
thinking,
creative
yeah.
thinking, their this is how we as a human, like business professionals, can help them as well. I mean, the ounce is on us, so it's not only the Z way, it's also the millennial way, the baby boom,
Yeah.
like
Yes, yes.
across the generation. And I think
Across
that's
it, yes.
really one good technique that personally I
Yeah.
have learned, and I'm trying to share also
course,
with the
of
people
course.
that I work with or the people that I talk with, because I think this is really ultimate, because that's one aspect that you can cherry pick, what are these skills. And I want to add something to what you said. Lately, and I've been working with a lot of universities, I could see that there is a nice mix and blend between bridging academia with business. And I really love that approach, because academia at some point they were like that boring institute that does everything the old way, and then when the student come and like they get graduated, it's going to be hard for them to find perhaps a proper job. But now with that bridge and businesses coming to that platform, to universities hosting them as guest lecturers or for example as a keynote speaker, exactly, Soumana, right? So this is helping. Why? Because we now get to know the people inside the university. We have that partnership.
Yes,
And
yes,
I love the concept partnership, because I get to see the students, and honestly it helps me as a business
Of
professional.
course, of
Why?
course.
Because what I need to do also to transform my business, right?
Yeah.
Hearing it live from the people
Yes.
who are leaders of the future. And I think this is paramount for every organization.
True.
We're not there yet, but we are, working on it. And I think we just need to push with consistency,
sure.
so we
Great
can
insight.
really take this forward.
So-
Quantum thinking.
Very good sneak peek. Before we bridge into like some other topics that we really have on the agenda today, because it's a lot of interesting topics. The concept before was hire for attitude, teach skills later. What you're currently saying is, what skills could they bring to the table that are not work skills related, right? And then, of course, you check for the attitude. So what happened to that? Hire for attitude.
That hasn't gone anywhere.
Okay.
I stand by that 110%. I think so many of the jobs that our children are going to have, for example, they don't even exist yet.
Yes.
So, we shouldn't be
Wow, for
thinking,
sure.
these are the specific skills that you need necessarily. I think we should be focusing on establishing a culture of learning, of passion for learning, of
Growth.
intellectual curiosity. And if we can instill these types of characteristics, and this is, I think, what you mean by that attitude and
absolutely.
aptitude.
Of course, because like the attitude would how would they portray themselves there? Because the Gen Zs now, they don't think like millennials. They currently, for example, or probably the betas in the future, and we've had that discussion in our mentorship. It's not like they are just do not care. It's just because they know that there are so many other ways. So that's how they operate, because they know that there are so many options. There's so many ways to really get there. Why do you only think about it like this way?
And that's not necessarily a weakness. That can be a strength.
Exactly. I look at it as a strength, but the organizations are yet to evolve towards really understanding.
For sure. It's just that I believe in a way there's been a major cultural shift that's impacted the expectations in a certain way. And that's where the mismatch is sort of coming. And then there's also so many micro level factors that we see. So if we helicopter a bit down and we talk specifically about the region that we are currently in, let's say the Middle East, North Africa, and specifically the space, there's also a gap in terms of, how it's structured. Here, there's much more value for an experienced professional because the businesses are structured that way. There's still no established path from college, so like graduate program to a place where you move and transition down into the leadership, and you take it from there. So there's still that gap that, and I personally have faced this, so I can be talking about it and I can attest to it, that there's still that regional sort of an influence here. And it's not because the leaders are not willing to, it's not because the businesses are not willing to, it's primarily just because they're structured that way, that they value, and their modus operandi is something that's been always around experienced professionals. It's transitioning slowly into hiring fresher talents, but there's a long way there. Vis-a-vis, if you see a US or an India, they have that set pathway. So if you are still a bachelor's graduate, you can get into the industry because there's always a 0 to 1 year that someone will be looking for. Here it'll always be like a 3 to 5.
That's true.
Definitely.
So do you have any thoughts on that, like, since we have put that topic out here?
You've put us under the...
No, nothing that.
It's more of like, what could organizations do on a general? It could be here, some because you see entrepreneurs or startups, they do hire fresh graduates, and then while companies probably they just get them as interns, or even like if you have been there for a very long time, you're probably like, maybe there is resistance to change, right? Of
course.
And this is where probably I could help you with that without putting you in the spotlight.
How does being under the
no. What I mean is like there is the agile HR, right? So that could come in, but what's the concept? Could that be one of the solutions? Maybe
See, in my opinion, I think, as you rightly said, we live in a bubble that is literally different from any other bubble across the world, simply because we have that cultural mix. We have around 200 nationalities, and
100%.
the UAE is a young nation, right?
Exactly.
And it has also people who come from different generations. So this is like an interesting mix. Now, going back to your point,
and then opportunity. People have opportunities here.
Big time. And back to your point, I think that's why you see here, at least from a Dubai perspective, a lot of startups.
Excellent. Yes.
It's a thriving startup ecosystem.
Yes.
You see a lot of startups, and you see also massive legacy organizations who are actually, if I just look, economically, and take that drone view, rather than a helicopter view, right? I see it as in a way where, if these legacy organizations, they don't invest in either, buying that kind of startup, if they don't want to start from scratch, or they don't hire these, new generations coming into the organization, if they think futuristically, where they might be, perhaps, they might rethink the way they are thinking today. Right. So think with the end in mind, in my opinion. Right. What is your mindset? Do you want to be lagging, or do you want to be ahead of the curve? Do you want to be a trendsetter as an organization, or as a leader, or what? And I think this is where, the game changing opportunities happen. The magic happens, in my opinion. And this is where you hack the matrix, the business matrix,
yes, of course.
right? And this is where you really change the dynamics of the economies, of learnings, of the population, geopolitically, socioeconomically, everything gets really changed.
Of course, from the people.
If you start thinking this way.
Definitely.
Again, I always advocate that we really need to start shifting the way we think, and I think thanks to somehow the gig economy as well.
Yes,
right?
of course.
Where it came like you have plenty of platforms. We don't want to say names, so we don't want to advertise at this time.
No, definitely.
But again, if you don't have the quality or the skill set available, then you can go to leverage the gig economy, and you have like amazing skill set over there, amazing talents, amazing. I mean, they can do stuff for you that I'm like, okay, where am I?
Give me my Walkman back. Give me my Walkman back.
So I'm not sure if this attempts somehow to or feeds into.
That's sure. It's like a mixture of everything at this point in time. There's no structure, there's no barriers. You just need to know what to use when. It's quite a wonderful thing that's happened in the last few years, I feel.
Yeah, and I think COVID literally has helped. It was like a wake-up call for many. And if that wake-up call did not wake us up yet, then, which level of dreams are we still?
I think there's a really important word that you said, and that was the word invest. And that's what it kind of comes down to with fresh talent is it is an investment, because when you bring
very powerful.
someone fresh in, you can't just set them free and hope for the best. You have a responsibility as an organization, as a leader, to make sure that they're going to be successful. And that's an investment of time. That's an investment of money by association. But in the end, as you pointed out, if you're thinking long term, that return on investment is absolutely worth it. And I think we just need to get that message out there a little bit more. And I think a lot of companies also just don't know how to do it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think.
And I've been struggling with this since we started our internship program in 2022. Is I see on these HR channels that I'm part of on WhatsApp, people are always asking, how do you do internships? Like, what are the steps? What do I need to do from a legal perspective? What do I need to do from a compliance perspective? How do I find this fresh talent? There's just a lack of knowledge or organization.
It's not like they don't want it, it's that they don't know how.
The desire is there, but the structure is missing, as Krupa said. So I think we need to come together as a community and figure out, how can we create opportunities for young people to get out into this world and get hands-on experience and increase those skills.
I want to take us away from recruitment. We've recruited already. We're in the company. We're hired. No, I personally, I'm gonna say a very bold statement. I say it all the time. I don't believe in something called work-life balance, because for me, work is part of life, and it could take your time a lot during 1 week, a little bit less during the other week. There is this whole, because you're bringing your whole human to 100%. Work, right? So it's not like there isn't a 50-50.
It's work-life integration.
Exactly. Perfect. I like that idea. I'm gonna use it. I'm gonna steal it from you.
It's not mine. It's all yours.
So now, because we're advocating for generations and different generations, do you believe that the different generations, probably the answer is yes, value that in a completely different way? Like, what matters for them is different. How do they view their lives is different. And what is your personal advice in creating policies that can actually cater to all these different generations, being the expertise in human resources, in talent, psychology, like trying to really change the whole way of recruitment? What could be some of your thoughts that maybe are not yet out there, but you would aspire to see the companies have them, so that we can have more of a kind of an engaged workforce?
Okay, so again, I always try to take myself future forward. The problem, I think, today, maybe it's not a problem yet, but it might be, our rigid comp and band structure.
Oh, wow.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and our rigid compound band structure is set or designed in a way where, command and control days were there, like 1900s.
Yes.
And
Clock in, clock out.
Yes,
We're in a
yes.
factory.
Yeah.
It's a business
Simply.
factory.
right?
Yeah, it's very old, yeah.
And when you try to change it, the change is hard. Anyways, people fear change. People advocate, but yet they fear.
Yeah.
Right, and this is where sometimes what happens is you see a lot of people leaving corporates, and because they haven't found their purpose, because their purpose is literally blocked through that rigid compound band framework. If we change how we do total rewards as an HR professional, in a way where it's like who you are as a human, what do you bring to the table, the impact that you do. We are all about today innovation and creativity, especially in a world where AI is going to take over. I mean, people hate me when I say that, but it's going to take some of our jobs. So how do you elevate yourself from personal branding upwards, right? Are you able to generate new ideas in the organization? If yes, brilliant. Is the organization, though, can pay you for that idea for life or what, right? If you are, let's say, thinking on the go as an employee in this organization, but suddenly you fall into burnout, is the system going to automatically shut you down to say, go on, leave? Go leave. Where is the AI / well-being / human-centered approach policies, right? So where are we going? I know this is perhaps bizarre if people might hear it at the beginning, but maybe this is where we need to go. Maybe this is not where we need to go, but maybe this is what we need to challenge, right? So what are we doing in that space as humans? And the problem sometimes is that we are guilty as also professionals in the organization that we are not the sounding board of the CEO, just like the CFO has been a sounding board in the CEO's brain. Right?
It's because it's finance related.
Everything in this world is finance related. But what about human? What is the role of HR? Why don't you have a seat on the table that is beyond administration?
It's not personnel anymore.
It's not personnel. The world has evolved.
Yes.
Yet you need operations.
Of course, you need to get
but
that done.
Alongside,
you need that brain. You need that activator. If I
Very
can say.
interesting.
For sure.
Very interesting and very challenging and very impact across generation. I feel like I'm 50 years ahead, and probably we won't be there yet. But that's like the thinking that we need to do.
No, I couldn't agree more. This one-size-fits-all approach to compensation and benefits, it doesn't work. And if you want to have a diverse workforce in terms of age, which is incredibly important, you need to consider that people want different things at different phases of their life. So people at the early stages of their career may be more interested in career development benefits, whereas people nearing the end of their career may be more interested in benefits related to retirement planning, things like that. So if you're not offering things across the spectrum of benefits, I think you're going to notice that the people that are coming on board are fitting into a very particular segment of those benefits that you're offering.
100%. It's just like repeating the brain cell all over again and repeating the same things all over again, living the same life all over again. So what is the evolution?
So we need flexibility to recognize that people are individuals. They have different needs.
Of course.
For sure. Now that you've thrown a lot of light, on compensation, we have talked about benefits, we have talked about all across the skill set, how do we look at younger generations, and I couldn't agree more when we say there's no one size fit all approach. It has to be personalized, customized, depending on organization's need, depending on the person's need. And we had a very challenging question coming from you to all the CEOs out there in the world. Where is the HR?
Where's my seat at the table?
I have so many bold statements coming out. I'm like already thinking, Nazira is really making impact.
Buckle up.
No, but let's go back. Let's go back to a topic you took out of the bucket, which is AI. AI nowadays, we are seeing it being used across the minutest of tasks, the majorest of tasks. There's LLMs, there's DeepSeek that's made a lot of noise off lately coming out from China. We have our own Falcon model here in the region in UAE. But how do you see AI's application specifically in terms of recruitment? I know you guys are doing a very fascinating job integrating AI with professional me in, analyzing a person's profile and making it a skill first profile rather than a keyword first profile. But I also want to know from you, Ghenwa, how do we look at integrating AI more from, let's say, a Fortune 500 perspective, more from a traditional corporate house perspective? Where do you see that coming into play?
It's an interesting question. All right. So, I mean, today, if I look at organizations, obviously, depending, on the size of the organization, are you a Fortune 500 stretch across the world or across the globe, or are you a startup? This determines, your ability, flexibility, and agility, and willingness actually to adopt AI, right? Again, because you're a startup, you're small, so you need that tech to help you accelerate your business. If you are like a big organization, you have a huge workforce, right? So your, let's say, interventions that you put in place to adopt AI might be at a pace that is somehow slower than these startups. However, this doesn't mean that you can't upskill your people in the organization.
That's a very strong word.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have a community of practice that is like AI centered? Do you have, let's say, the right, learning interventions? Do you adopt the concept of edutainment in your organization? And I speak a lot in the Matrix with Dr. Soha on, the concept of edutainment, because if your learning interventions are centered around boring methodologies, where you attend the class and that's it, I think would better shut down very soon.
Exactly.
Right. And when I say edutainment, I don't say it in a way where people have to dance in class. No, but you can do like flashbacks. You can help bring a dance mode inside. I don't know, to spike up the conversation, and why not? Right. A lot of today trainings are centered around well-being. So you see a lot of learning interventions that has a bit of, let's say, sports activities in between. You have like cracking jokes, storytelling, acting, and this is perhaps a good starter. Of course, there is like next level kind of thing where you have an interactive dashboard, or you have a certain community of practice to say, let's say, a leadership think tank inside the organization. How is this gonna scale across the business and perhaps outside? Right. So what are you doing in that space? And this is where I bring edutainment to the job, to the organization, and to functions, because if you can't bridge, that organization and stitch it all together rather than operating in silos, I think this is where we, AI is gonna definitely take our job, because, if we are thinking individualistically, then Gen AI, and I don't know what level, second level of AI is going to take my job, because they're going to be smarter than me. Their IQ is, I think, at a, not sure, and don't quote me on this, but they are now even at the level beyond Einstein when it comes to intelligence. Right? So where are we?
Possibly, yeah, for sure. But
So,
but again, I am strongly in the opinion of, I feel AI is not going to take a jobs somewhere.
anything that is a human related, it will not take
It will be a mix of
It'll be a mix,
human-centered and AI, because there will be new opportunities coming. And I like what you have said earlier, right? There will be jobs that will be created that we probably didn't know existed. I mean, millions of years ago, probably we didn't know that a driver would exist, right? There were no cars. So if you really think
But
about that,
definitely, the mechanical ones will go off. Like something that's static, it's
correct.
1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's going to go off, because
The surgery will be done
efficiency.
by a robot. It might be more accurate because the doctor
Yeah,
might
that's
be
what they
shaking.
say.
Yeah,
They've
right.
been doing
Yeah,
robotic
but at the
surgery for a
moment,
long time.
AI could
Never
really
know.
detect some. It could detect some tumors and everything else better than the human because of how it is being treated. So it depends on how it goes.
But let's go micro. Let's see how AI specifically for recruitment can, change the game.
Sure. Before we dive back into recruitment, I think when we're thinking about AI, a lot of people get really scared. AI is coming for my job. AI is going to take over the world. Working for an AI company, a company that, we have a big responsibility to have ethical AI in what we do.
Great word.
Remembering that AI is there to facilitate human interaction and not to replace it. So if we can use AI to automate tasks, it frees up humans to do more human-y things.
Agree.
So if AI in recruitment, to circle back to that, can pre-screen candidates find the best 10 out of a stack of 1,000 CVs, then the recruiter has more time to actually sit down, talk to people, ask them questions like you did about cooking. Because an AI is not going to be able to
100%.
interview the same way that you can, and it shouldn't.
Yeah.
You should still be having that human interaction, and if AI can facilitate that, I think that's where it brings value to recruitment. Should not replace it, should facilitate it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Just to reiterate, again, I'm a strong believer that anything that has human intervention, AI won't be able to take it, right? But the mundane, let's say, jobs or tasks, I think this is where AI is going to take it. So if you as a human, you're just, your job is just to screen resumes, I think, this is a wake-up call for you to say, okay, what am I,
Someone
what
could
do I
do
need
it
to
on
do?
one. Yeah.
Just someone is going to do it on me.
Yeah.
And for me, I speak boldly because I like to alarm people because I have been myself alarmed. And that alarming hit me in a way where like, okay, Ghenwa, you need to change your life. And honestly, my life changed in 2020 onwards. So that's why I always, say COVID has been a game changer for me. And thanks God we had it, because if it wasn't like this, we were on autopilot.
100%.
Right? So but thank you for bringing that up, because I think it was a very nice reminder not to scare people and to reiterate my message.
Teamwork.
I want to take you away from AI and go into EI.
Next level.
No, because we're talking about leading intergenerations. We're talking about a lot of emotional intelligence for the audience. EI is what we stand for emotional intelligence. Me as a leader, how could I go away from some of the blind spots that could probably occur to me, or are there programs out there that could guide us? Are organizations working on preparing those leaders who choose or work with teams that they want to be engaged, given that they're going to be multi-generational? Right, so when AI is involved, and I don't know if that involves agile human resources techniques or there are other skills that could be there. So what's your input on emotional intelligence and preparing leaders for multi-generations, looking at emotional intelligence?
Okay, so I think from a recruitment perspective, EI is a checkpoint that I personally like to verify if I'm sitting in interviews.
Excellent.
Because
How do you do that? Because it's a really difficult thing to quantify.
It is, right? So first of all, if I have to start with the emotional intelligence, I think it is the X factor that any person would need in their life. It will set you up for success, right? Now, how do you maneuver your discussion during the interview, right, is where you highlight or you signal out to your recruiter that you have, a good level of AI. As a recruiter, right, I usually put my candidates in tough situations. And I ask them questions outside of the box, right? Were they able to, not to, let's say, it's okay to pause and think. And it's okay to mumble across your words, right? But how do you maneuver your way and how are you aware to say, okay, you know what, I haven't seen this coming, just give me a minute. it tells you that, you know, this person is
Present.
has self-awareness, can lead themselves, and is able at some point to push across, right? Now, when it comes to us as, you know, business professionals, I think if you can't lead yourself as a human, right, especially if you're stepping into corporate and leadership roles, I think this is where, you know, someone has to signal this out for you. Again, you are operating in an organization, and an organization is more like a human body. You have the brain, you have the nervous system, right? And HR is considered the heart of that organization, right? So, I mean, I do advocate where, you know, HR professionals also be as mentors to these leaders in the organization, the human aspect, you know, when it comes to mentoring. Like, how is your people, like your team doing? You know, like ask them these uncomfortable questions. And I've sat in rooms where I saw red faces, right? And I said, it's okay. I mean, really, it's okay, right? And again, you know, it starts with you understanding what is emotional intelligence. And it's not new. It's been there for ages, even before Daniel Goleman, right? But now it's booming because, you know, with the rise of AI machines and artificial intelligence, and the world is just evolving in a way where you can't control it. How do you control other stuff? What can you control? You can control yourself, first of all. And you don't need to control yourself, but you have to have control over yourself, right? You have to be aware where, like, just it happened now when you spoke about, you know, AI won't, you know, take the job. It was more of a wake-up call for me to say, you know what, let me reiterate so I don't get misunderstood. And I'm not like, this is a good example usually,
of being
just to
like
say
aware of your
present
words.
in the moment. You are aware that you have like a shortfall in here or there. Like, do you do immediate self-reflections or not? Or let's say, how do you treat your people? I mean, I had a situation at some point in my life where, you know, a leader was saying, Ammar, the generations that work for me are really young, and I treat them like as if they're my kids. Hold on. They're not your kids.
Yes.
They are business professionals like you, but happen to be at a younger age.
Excellent.
Right? So how do you, you know, how do you give that leader a wake-up call to say, they're not your kids, you know, try to think differently. Let's see where this is coming from.
Excellent.
Maybe that's why you're adding more stress on your, you know, people, because they can't accept you. You're not their mom.
Yes.
Or you're not their father, right? So this is where I think AI really plays a pivotal role in the success of you as a human, if you are an individual contributor, or if you are a team leader, with the success of your teams and the organization holistically. Because if you don't have strong EI led people, you will eventually end up with somehow a toxic culture.
So we can develop that basically,
It's
as
a
long as we
learnable
are,
skill.
of course, it's a learnable skill.
That's very beautifully said.
Yeah.
I love the way you put it.
I've never seen someone speak about it this way.
Yeah.
And with that passion, and actually with bringing in like real life examples, having led teams across different places, it's really plays a huge role.
It does.
And the reason why I asked this question is that we cannot go away from human-centered.
Yes.
Yeah. There will still be the human-centered, so the EI combined with the AI are going to be the future, right? They're going to be able to give us the time to do other human stuff, probably set the expectations to what these generations want and the other generations
100%.
want moving forward. So,
and the beauty of that is when you integrate it, as you said, with AI, right? So you train your AI on EI, right? And then what happens during the interview process, not in the interview process, but selection process, right? It will be able to detect, because, you know, at some point you might be asking your candidate before they submit their resume to film themselves, right? So how would that AI analyze their EI during, you know, that video recording in a way or
without
another?
bias, though, ethically.
Without, ethical,
really controversial
topic. It's a bit, you know, controversial for sure. And I'm happy to see, you know, EI is gonna be integrated at a later stage with AI.
It will be
somehow.
needed so much as AI currently is there. Like people are speaking about it. I think this is going to be next because we will realize that it's not being utilized so much more, and there will be the need of it because there's going to be so many experts probably potentially ready for the future, but not able to really work on their human skills.
That's true. And again, there's a lot of assessments and certifications that you can incorporate. Coaching usually helps a lot, right? So have that, coaching conversation on EI and, make it as a regular topic inside the organization to move away from stigma, right? To say it's a learnable skill. We're all on that journey. Normalize it. Normalize that tone.
That comfort level to come, because I feel like we have put it out on the panel. The rise of AI is only going to lead to the scarcity of EI, and that's where right now people who are experts in AI, they are in demand, but a few years down the line, someone who will be able to establish that human touch will be earning much, much more, will be recognized much, much more than the AI expert.
True.
So that's for sure. But we also brought out a very important point. You mentioned ethical AI. You mentioned biases that can come out of AI. And you've been dealing with AI pretty much for quite a long time now. How do you feel we can train the model to mitigate those biases, to reduce the impact of them? And how do you also see these biases kind of coming out into play in the current process, in the way the current models are working? Maybe you can give some examples of, the biases that have been experienced, and how do we go around mitigating them?
Yeah, sure. So bias is something that recruitment is constantly battling. And it's not because recruiters are bad people. I think the bias that comes in is almost always unconscious bias. It's things that we don't even know that we have bias about. There's been a lot of work in this space. Amazon actually tried a couple of years ago to launch a smart AI system to identify candidates the same way that it identifies products with a 5-star rating system, which sounds amazing, but it actually was not a successful endeavor. And the reason was that the data it was trained on proved to be incredibly biased, especially towards women in technology, because a lot of the information that it was trained on was a bunch of white men in tech. And so that's what it started to look for.
Like doctors. I've done that with
copy and paste. It's looking for more of the same.
Nurses are different.
It's a bit different, yeah, for sure. So we have to be so mindful when we're creating these algorithms to be giving it a huge variety of data. And that's why we've been training our proprietary models on over 100,000 CVs in the past quarter from all over the world, because the kind of candidates you see or the kind of information you see on a CV in America is very different than what you see in Vietnam or in South Africa or in Sweden. And so if you're only training your model on a little bit of information, it doesn't know how to understand the context of outliers. So garbage in, garbage out. So you have to be really, really mindful of training without bias. And we've also, in terms of our product, incorporated an anti-bias mode as a default.
Very good. Okay.
And what I mean by that is when we present candidates to users, we've removed all personal identifying information. So you don't know what is the gender of this person, what is the age of this person, which is very pertinent to this podcast, because that can be a discriminatory factor.
Of course. So you try to help not to give it any discriminatory.
Exactly. So you're just focusing on abilities.
Skills.
And it's really interesting too, when we talk about recruitment, the different regulations that exist around the world in different cultural contexts. For example, last week I learned that you can't ask people in the UK for a specific amount of experience because that's considered discriminatory.
Wow.
Because a young person, if we have Krupa applying for a job and there's a certain number of years required of experience, that doesn't mean that Krupa can't do that job. It doesn't mean she doesn't have those skills. So it's interesting that there's different,
I love that.
different laws in different places. So The bias is inherently addressed in
I'm
some
happy to
places.
hear that you're trying to like
Yes.
mitigate.
It's important, but it's, to your point, it's really hard because there's a lot of bias out there,
There's
and
unconscious
it's
one.
usually unconscious. So
Yeah.
we
Yes.
have to combat bias with knowledge. I think that's the best thing that we can do, is provide context, provide objective information so that people can make informed decisions, not subjective decisions based on their own personal experience.
I think this is where the
100%.
battle is when you are doing internal mobility,
Yeah, makes sense.
because that is even a bigger battle. And we want you more there.
And these same principles apply there 110%.
Yeah,
These same concepts of looking at people holistically,
Yeah.
it can be applied to internal marketplaces, internal mobility. It's just a completely different paradigm in terms of
Correct.
viewing
True.
talent.
True.
You
I
know,
love
you're
that.
holding something very, very special.
Yes.
Yes, we're here to celebrate with you.
Oh, thank you.
And we have the privilege of probably like being some of the first people to speak with you about the talent matrix. Do you want to carry it? So show it to the camera. This is your camera. So that's the talent matrix playbook.
Yes.
It's a book that is written by you, co-authored by Dr. Soha Shaheen as well.
Yes.
Very proud to really have you here.
Finally.
It speaks about quantum thinking that you've been sharing. It speaks about probably challenging HR, current models, being out there. I know you're always
It's very
out there.
provocative to start with.
Yeah, we like it. We like it.
Yeah.
So
It's for the strong heart.
Yes. Matches your personality.
exactly. Yeah. So having written a book myself, it's kind of a healing journey when you put all
Big
your
time.
ideas out there. So first of all, tell us a little bit more about the book, how much you can tell us now.
Sure.
And
peek.
specifically about quantum thinking. And so that I don't really like cut your flow, what would be some key takeaways that you would want the listeners and the people watching the Z-Way to take away from the talent matrix, and tell us where they can buy it.
Of course.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Wow. That's so many things. I hope my fish memory memorizes
No, I think
everything.
you're okay. You're okay.
If I forget, just nudge me.
No worries.
So again, this is a book that I have proudly co-authored with Dr. Soha Shaheen. Dr. Soha and I, just for everybody to know on this podcast, I've met her also in a roundtable discussion in one of the HR conferences. And we clicked, our energy clicked. And when we started, talking about, her perspective, her interest versus mine, and, her background versus mine, and she is an EI guru. That's what I like to call her.
Wow.
And she understands EQ, emotional intelligence, to core, right? And I, with my experience from a human resource perspective, talent management perspective, been in corporates for the past 20 years, where I also personally started working at a very young age. I was only 15.
Wow.
I left school, then worked, then came back, then stopped. Then I had an interesting journey, and I've seen world from a different perspective versus hers. So while we spoke, we thought, what is it that the world has been missing lately, with all the technology coming in, with all of these like talks, and this is when we realized, like, hey, we need to bridge HR with emotional intelligence, because only then we can change the narrative of, where does HR sits in the organization. And in chapter 2, you will see this actually. We are advocating for HR to also be, the sounding board in the CEO's brain. It's like, the G3, which is your CEO, CHRO, or I call here in the book the CTMO, because you're managing talent. Like
Exactly.
humans are
Yes.
talented people, right? So, and I think humans deserve the title that they're talented. So that's why we go into the concept of CTMO rather than just CHRO. And then also, that the G3 is like the CEO, CTMO, and then the CFO. So when this power gets combined, right? It's like the pyramid. the power pyramid. And this is when organizations change. This is when, emotional intelligence come to the table, because yes, you need the emotional EI, but you also need the financial aspect of it, right? And only when you combine these two with the strategic thinking of the CEO, this is when your whole organization starts operating. So this book, when I co-authored with Dr. Saha Shaheen, we thought, what is it that the world needs the most today? Away from technology, away from binary thinking. And the problem with even us as organizations, as leaders, because we're very busy, because we are living in a very materialistic world, we're living in a fast-paced world, we lose that human aspect, and we start dealing with each other as black and white, 1001, which creates the matrix, and hence to say talents are away from matrix. Talents are away from binary thinking. So we're not 1 and 0,
So it's
0
more
and
quantum
1.
thinking.
We
it's
are
much
humans.
more.
So deal with us not as only humans, talented people. I have a
Yes.
potential. You have a potential. You're talented in a different direction. You are in a guru, let's say, in a different aspect, right? So how do I tailor my approach to you, right, in order for you to not only thrive, but actually help me grow as an organization?
100%,
And I tapped into a lot, like a little bit of, discussions in today's podcast about, like, say, the quantum thinking when it comes to your storytelling, your, let's say, Kanban. Right?
Yes.
So how do you review your Kanban? How do you scale it up in a way where it's away from these rigid structures, right? Look at the world. Look at the socio-economic situations, the geopolitical, the industrial revolution. What has changed? Why are you still there?
How can you get ready for that?
Right?
Amazing. Wow.
Think bigger. And again, AI, ChatGPT is going to help you. If you haven't used it yet to trigger that quantum thinking, use it, because it could be one channel for you. I don't know. So why not? So again, one of the key takeaways I think in this book is if you are a traditional thinker, this could help you evolve. If you are, let's say, strong at heart, right, this book is for you. If you are against change, this book is for you. If you are an advocate of change, this book is for you. If you are thinking in it, in a way that is quite linear, then this book is gonna awaken you. And I'm happy because the people who have given us praises, they're not just in the UAE based, they're across the globe. They work for international organizations, and when we try to, see their input and their, let's say, ideas and insights that they have taken from at least the chapters that they have read, we were personally in tears. I mean, just bringing now the human aspect, because we didn't know that this book has really,
the potential.
I mean, Soha and I, Dr. Soha and I, wrote it with tears to start with, because we all had our personal issues as we were working on this, and I think and we have different styles. So how did we use our emotional intelligence to create a one tone?
It's very
and
hard.
As an author,
so writing with your own voice is one thing, but writing with two voices is different.
It's different. Yeah.
If I want to buy your book, where can I find it?
So it's going to be available definitely on Amazon. And those who have bought it, I think, thank God so far, we had around 150 copies sold in almost 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure.
And you're a bestseller now, right? So I've been following you, and so she's already a bestseller on Amazon, right?
Yes, on Amazon, and we have really good reviews, and I'm surprised. So I just ask people who buy the book to leave us, a review. We really take it to the next level, because this is only the start. Right,
and it goes hand in hand with our Z way.
Of course,
impact across generations.
Across generations. Because if you really want to drive, human progress, this is what you need.
Yeah, you need to be the change that you want to see in the world.
Exactly. Love that mic drop moment. She said something really nice.
Yeah, definitely. Love it. So more power to you guys, to you and Dr. Soha. I'll definitely buy a copy, although I'm not that big of a reader. Okay. But the first book I actually like very avidly read was yours.
Wow.
Because she
I
pushed
didn't
it
get
on me
an
onto
honor.
me.
Yeah, I gave her a copy, so now I know she read it.
Onto me, so
Should quiz her on it afterwards.
so yours is the next in line. But I love the C3 model.
Thank
we
you.
love, the perspective that the power pyramid sort of has. So definitely we want to see how that goes out in the world, how that brings around impact that we have just discussed. Building for, beyond keywords.
Time to leave those resumes and job descriptions
Exactly.
behind.
Just dumping those CVs out there. Love what you guys are doing at Professional Me as well. Although I might be a bit biased towards you guys because I have that affinity towards you, but no, not being biased at all. It's an awesome purpose, mission, and a product that you guys have. So definitely, if you have some time, check them out. And I guess you do have an offer for all the startups that's running still.
Yeah,
I'm not
we
really
actually
sure.
do.
Yeah.
We just launched it. I think the press release is going to go out
Yeah.
probably on Monday.
Excellent.
But to give back to the startup ecosystem,
Yes.
we're offering a $2,500 credit to early stage startups. Because when you're building a company, finding the right talent is so hard.
Wow.
It's really time consuming. And
So you're helping out with the
Yes.
ecosystem.
Yeah.
I love
because it
that.
comes full circle, right?
Amazing. Yeah. So the whole thing is circling.
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
Wow.
Exactly.
Amazing.
So if you're an early stage startup, please get in touch with me.
Yes.
I'm here to help.
Megan Adams on LinkedIn, professional.me. And the Talent Matrix on Amazon.
Shameless
Thank you
promotion.
so much.
Thank you
I've
so
said
much
that,
for
we wanna
having us,
thank
ladies.
you.
I learned
Yes.
so much. I appreciate
Same.
your
I'm like,
insight.
I'm
Thank
intrigued to know more.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Thank you.
So we want to thank you for being here with us, for shelling out the time, and we want to thank you guys for tuning in, from streaming across, and showing us the love and support. And see you guys in the next episode.